So if your manager says, stop doing this project, start another project, don't be stressed, it's agile. Yeah, I would like to give you the next speaker, Julia. She lead risk manager at Swift, and she's going to tell you what is risk management.
Hi everyone. All right, so risk management sounds a little bit scary, right? But I will start with saying that actually, guys, risk management is inherent and really much intangible part of everything that we do in our lives. We make decisions every day, sometimes without much thinking, but there are some decisions that we do that require a little bit more consideration, and that's because there is quite a bit of uncertainty around these decisions. And that's actually where risk management brings value, because risk management helps with navigating these uncertainties just with a little bit more confidence. So let's imagine you're about to start a high-profile new engineering initiative, and you want to ensure that decisions that you take through this initiative are not going to jeopardize the delivery of this project. So let's see how risk management can help you in practice with that. So in front of you is a classic end-to-end risk management process. And it starts with first step of identifying scope, context, and also criteria for your initiative. So let's imagine that when it comes to your engineering initiative, you're particularly concerned with software delivery lifecycle process, SDLC process. This is something that presents the most uncertainty for you. Also, during this step, you determine that because it's such a high-profile initiative, you don't want to accept any high-level risks. So you did that, and then you proceed with the most interesting, in my opinion, part. So that's the risk assessment. So during risk assessment, you identify, you analyze, and you also evaluate your risks. So let's start with the identification. There's a couple of techniques that you can use for identifying risks. So you can do some brainstorming, you can do some data analysis, for example, look at the past incidents. So that's something that I always find helpful. Also, you can engage subject matter experts who can navigate the particular area that you work, and from their experience, they can share some risks. So from my perspective, when it comes to SDLC process, one of the most common that I personally dealt with was risk of data breach. So for our purposes, let's imagine that's the risk that we're looking into here. So we identify the risk and we move with analysis. So doing analysis, there is many things that we do, but the key for us is to identify the likelihood and impact of this risk. And let's imagine that using amazing risk techniques, including risk matrix, you determine that your risk actually has high likelihood and high impact of materializing. So you did identify your risk, you analyzed it, and now you need to decide what this actually means for you and for your project. So that is the evaluation step. You essentially go back to step one, and you remember that you don't want to accept any high risks. And because you don't want to accept any high risks, you deem this risk as outside of appetite. It's high, it's unacceptable. It's not something you're ready to have when it comes to your project. So, next step, risk treatment. You identified your risk, you analyzed it, you determined you don't want to have it because it's high. Now, you need to decide what you're going to do with it. In engineering, and especially with high-level risks, what this means usually is that you're going to mitigate your risks. Mitigation means, in very simple terms, that you're going to go identify and implement actions that will ultimately reduce your risk. So, when it comes to data breach related risks, usually mitigation actions can include implementation of multi-factor authentication, you can enhance your encryption of data, or you can review your whole password policy. So really depends on the context, but just some of the examples for you. So that, in essence, is a quick summary of the steps that you can take. But there is additional points that I would like you to remember. In addition to that process, please always ensure that you speak to your colleagues and you engage stakeholders who are involved in your risk assessment, or should be, and also who are impacted by your initiative. And it seems really common sense, right? Engage people. But from my experience, I actually witnessed that the lack of this engagement can end up in the failed initiatives or delayed initiatives. Very simple, but seems very complicated. So remember that. Also, ensure to monitor and review your risks. And I wanted to emphasize this because you may be involved in initiatives that are super dynamic. They have a lot of changes. And that's why the process that I just explained, it needs to be repeated. If there is new uncertainties, please go back to them and review and quickly go through it again. Also, document and report. Every step that you take, significant outcomes, ensure that it's documented and socialized. So documented, whether it's for audit purposes, socialized, whether it goes to the board, any other significant reports, it's quite important. So that's it from me on risk management. I hope you found it helpful.
So the more risk management you have, the more agile you could be.